All right, I'd like to welcome to the HOI4 podcast here, Pillbox20. He's a fellow Hearts of Iron 4 creator. He also is the one who created this excellent intro that you just saw on the podcast. So thank you very much, Pillbox. How are you doing?
Hello there. I'm doing great. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, no problem. I really enjoy this format because I would do this whether or not I was going to make it into a podcast. So it really gives me like a foot in the door with a lot of Hearts of Iron 4 creators. I mean, we've been friends for years now, so I know I could just hit you up and talk to you anytime. But yeah, I have been approached by a few other creators about doing the podcast for them as well.
It is a new approach for you, so people are excited to see how it goes. I don't mind. You hit me, I answer the call. Here I am.
Well, thanks for doing the podcast. And we were just talking about your mod and how challenging it is to be a Hearts of Iron 4 modder. So for those of you that don't know, Pillbox has a Bulgaria mod, and he has given feedback to the Hearts of Iron 4 devs recently that they've acted upon in updating the base game for Bulgaria. So yeah, tell us like the challenges of modding and what barriers do you have to updating and keeping your mod fresh?
Well, that's a very big topic, but I'll try to oversimplify it for the viewers. It's not definitely hard. It just depends on what you decide to pick and edit for the base game. For example, if you try to edit some stats on the divisions, that's pretty easy because these things don't get touched very often. Or for example, if you want to add new icons, that's also not very hard as long as you know how to. But things like, especially recently with monthly patches, if you try to make some changes to a focus tree or some mechanics how the game works, like decisions, events, and country-specific changes, as soon as Paradox touches something, your stuff might get broken, just like that. And the biggest change that I have made for my mods is usually new states, new provinces. Those things get messed up as soon as Paradox adds their own new states. Like in the Battle for the Bosphorus, for example, they expanded the Bulgarian states, the Yugoslavian states. I think they added even one more for Albania. And as soon as you add your own, and the new DLC comes up, they automatically overwrite yours. So it makes an error. You get a notification that the map is messed up. It cannot load, and then the entire game cannot work anymore.
Is there I don't want to get into the Hearts of Iron 5 discussion yet, but would you see any way that they could create a base game? You know, the code doesn't create these errors or doesn't like overwrite what the modders are doing every time they come up with a game update, because I know that this is a problem for all of the Hearts of Iron 4 mods, not just yours.
For the states and provinces specifically, I have tried to find a solution. But from what I know, like you have this file that has the states, and then every state gets its own unique number. If you try to, like, for example, make a gap, for example, the newest state is 834, for example, and you want, for example, to have your own space, like you give Paradox, for example, 200 free numbers, they can use them, for example. If you try to make your new state to be 1050, for example, I have not tested it, but I have made the research. Apparently the game doesn't recognize it. So that would be cool if it can be implemented, because this way you can have your own states and Paradox can have enough space to add new states for themselves to the base game. And how they can make it as well, that would be very nice if they actually do it for Hearts of Iron 5, is if there is higher number of state, for example yours, it would overwrite whatever is on the same territory, but it doesn't break, but recognizes the new changes to the territory that have been made. I have heard that Crusader Kings 3 actually has semi-friendly way to explain to the modder what are the current changes compared to your mod, so it can help him fix the issues much faster. But since I don't mod Crusader Kings 3, I cannot confirm it. Would be very nice if we had that.
So I'm just making up my own jargon here, but it sounds like Hearts of Iron 4 is very like linear code and doesn't allow for like parallel code or kind of like a mesh work. It's if this, then not that, or something like that. Is that, I'm not a coder, so I'm just kind of making this jargon up. Is that kind of correct?
It is like, for example, if two files with the same name exist, the game prefers the one that is in the base game, and if something else has the same name in the file, it creates an error rather than recognize the new file and just start to work with it. For some reason, if you have a mod and then you have a sub mod, there is no problem there. The sub mod overrides the stuff in the mod, and there is no problem between the original mod and the sub mod. But for the base game, for some reason, there's an issue there. You have to make workarounds there.
It would be nice. We'll save the Hearts of Iron 5 discussion for a little later, but for those of you that are new to Hearts of Iron 4, there is a rich modding community. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that most players in Hearts of Iron 4 have either played a mod or just main game a mod. So essentially, they don't play Hearts of Iron 4 unmodded. I run into a lot of those guys in the YouTube comments. Is it like some of the biggest mods are like Road to 66, I think it is. Did I just butcher that? 56. And I always forget this one. What's the one that's Fallout oriented?
Old World Blues, I believe. I have never touched that one because I know absolutely nothing about the universe, but I hear people like it, so...
I mean, it looks super cool, and yeah, I want to play that one eventually. I wonder if it's even updated, but
yeah. It works. Yes, I have people in my server that actually like it a lot, so I can confirm it actually works right now.
Well, going back to your mod, so I loaded your mod up. I know it's not up to date because of all the changes that are occurring. What provinces, can you see the screen that I shared?
You mean states? Well, I think the mod is not operational because it's missing something. Like you should have chief of the army assigned already, but apparently it doesn't work for some reason.
Any of these province or any of these states here, these cities, anything that you added?
These are the same. I thought you were talking about the old mod that I had. Like that one before Battle for the Bosphorus.
Yeah, Pillbox20's Bulgaria mod. That's what I have loaded up right now.
Well, it seems it's not working right now. Oh yeah, definitely not working. I immediately look how large everything is and how much free space it has. I have optimized the space as much as possible. If you want, you can try to reload it, or I can send you a link to try to see if it's the same thing.
Oh, it's okay. I was just wondering if it worked anymore and just wanted to give a plug for your mod. While I have the focus tree up here and I'm talking to a real life Bulgarian, what is your focus tree order? What is your goal here for like a OP Bulgaria playthrough?
Oh, it has been a lot of time since I last played vanilla, but I usually go with Boris and try to just annex as much stuff as possible before the major powers decide enough is enough. Like I can solo basically Greece and Romania by myself in early 1940, maybe late 1939. After that, yes, you go with power to the Tsar, basically. Try to reach, if you can zoom into, yes, strengthen the royal dictatorship on the left. You try to rush that one because it makes you have more political power and the decisions for the factions are much cheaper. You rush that one, then you improve the army as much as possible and basically just go ham in the Balkans. If I can unite most of the territories there, I have done my job. Of course, the Soviets are gonna come in and ruin everything, but then you have another challenge. Can you survive long enough against the Soviets? Or can you even push them, which I have done in my own videos for viewers, which apparently gets a lot of likes for some reason. That's the strategy, basically. I prefer to play solo, not rely on major powers.
So you don't go for Tsar Ferdinand the First at all?
No, that's cringe.
I mean, I'm a huge Boris fan, but I am told that if you bring back the Tsar, so that's Boris's father, right? That you get so many cores. Like, for whatever reason, like it was better for the cores.
No, they both have access to, if you go to the bottom section of the focus tree, Bulgarian integration of the Balkans, that focus with the two rifles, yeah, there. That thing allows you to core the entire Balkan. It doesn't matter if you're fascist or monarchist or with Ferdinand, for example. It is available to all of these ideologies and rulers. Basically, all ideologies have access to some way to core the Balkans. For example, the communists and the Democrats like to make their own faction, mega faction, to influence the Balkans one way or another, and then they propose a union, and then they become one nation, and you get cores on everything they have, except Turkey. Turkey is apparently not as accepted as the other Balkan nations.
Yeah, you got to play Greece to get the cores on Turkey.
Yes, Byzantium. I think they still have their decision to core automatically everything with a snap of a finger.
Well, I could
Magic.
see. So Ferdinand has the generate war goal tension limit, -50%. He's got justify war goal time, -15. Offensive war penalty stability modifier, plus 20%. That's actually pretty huge because that's going to make you successful on the offensive.
Yeah, he's more direct approach, but he suffers from, like, he doesn't unify or dismember the factions that you face that much. I would say he's a good path if you want more conquest, because, well, he led Bulgaria during a lot of wars, so he has experience there to be leader under pressure. Boris is more peaceful, like balanced approach, I would say, like that.
Yeah, it looked like Ferdinand. Also, you get 40% more military and civilian factories after your conquest. So maybe that's why people like him.
If you have him as a leader and you make, if you have puppets with him, each of the puppets gets a special national spirit that basically boosts non-aligned, I believe, and then it also transfers even more economy than the puppet status to Bulgaria. So that's, yes, he basically wants everything for himself.
Let's get into our old debate here while we're talking about Boris and the Tsar Ferdinand. So our debate that we've had like years ago was, my feeling was that Boris died right after a meeting with Hitler from a heart attack, kind of like I forget who died in Greece, if it was the president or prime minister, died in similar fashion. We do know that the prime minister of Greece was assassinated by the Nazis. My thinking is that we don't know how Boris was assassinated or if he was assassinated, but my thinking was that the Nazis assassinated him. What are your thoughts, Pillbox?
Yes, the German doctors that examined him confirmed that he died from some kind of poison that was found in the Greek leader Metaxas. I don't remember his first name, but that was his more popular name. People say that the Nazis assassinated him. Yes, that guy. People say he was assassinated by Hitler because he didn't allow poor Bulgarian territory Jews to be sent to Germany for you know what. And also he didn't agree to send troops to the Eastern Front. That is the basic reasoning behind this theory. Of course, it's not proven. But I would say not only, like, why would you assassinate one of your most stable ally in your faction? What happened after he was assassinated, the Regency Council that was formed, his brother was actually leading the council until his son, I forgot his name, until Boris's son was at the right age to lead. And the funny part is, even though Kirill was his brother that led the Regency Council, even though he's not as skilled as Boris, he basically continued his policy of non-intervention and keeping out of the war as much as possible and not sending Jews, not sending troops to the Eastern Front. So what was the point, Hitler? What was the point? I thought you guys were friends with Boris. What happened there? That's the biggest thing I cannot fathom by that theory. The theory I preferred is actually it was the Soviets, because if you destabilize an enemy ally, even though you're not fighting it, that's gonna create a lot of problems, which happened. The Fatherland Front, if you go to the Focus 3, the communist branch.
In Bulgaria?
Yes. There you go, the Fatherland Front in the center, right there. That organization formed, I think it was after 1940. So these guys basically unite, as you can see, the agrarians, broad socialists, all kind of other suppressed political parties and stuff. So these guys started to do a lot of damage, even while Boris was still in power, but he was keeping them at bay because he had an entire system to suppress the communists and prevent them from organizing effective resistance against the government. But after he was gone, like, things really went south. It was not full-blown civil war, but these guys were really nasty. They were creating a lot of problems for the Bulgarians. And I think, yeah, it might have not been the Soviets doing it intentionally, but since they supported the Bulgarian Communist Party one way or another, you can blame Stalin indirectly for that one. As you can see, it helped them a lot. So that's my theory. This is more likely. Even if they were not directly involved, they kind of helped the Communist Party throughout the years.
That, I mean, it makes sense that so the Communist Party indirectly through a faction inside Bulgaria attempted to assassinate him while he was exposed and on the move traveling would be the perfect opportunity to be able to do that. So I think that it is a viable theory, particularly the way that you explain it. And then unless there's proof that the Nazis thought that the rest of the Bulgarian government was going to play ball, like, yeah, why would you assassinate him? On the other hand, the Nazis were on a lot of drugs. So I don't know.
Yeah, that is also an option. It's not necessarily they thought about the consequences of this action. That might be the case as well. Who knows? Because by the time 1943, I think the Soviets were already pushing very hard in the Wehrmacht. So not the most, how should I put it? They didn't have the time to figure things out in the long run. They needed troops, they needed them now. And if Boris is not giving them, then someone else will. I guess that was the logic there.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy times, but I like to think about different events in history, particularly the ones that are kind of unsolved, and particularly because Boris, by all accounts, was an excellent leader and did really well, stood up against the Nazis. A lot of people did not do that. Even though he was in their faction, he still did everything that you talked about earlier, not, allowing the Nazis to send troops to the Eastern Front and not allowing them access to the Jews. Yeah, one of my favorite World War II leaders for sure.
I mean, he also is called the unifier for a reason, because he brought southern Dobruja, the state, from Romania. He got the territories Thrace and Central Macedonia from Greece, and then the North Macedonia and a few more territories there from Yugoslavia. This is what Ferdinand couldn't achieve. Boris achieved it just like that.
Yes, and for those of you that don't know, in World War I, Bulgaria was much bigger, but they had, was it an alliance with the Central Powers? But anyway, after the war, obviously, their faction lost. Therefore, all those territories that you just talked about, were they Bulgarian pre-World War I and then were taken away from Bulgaria post-World War I. Is that correct?
When Bulgaria was released from the Ottomans, the first treaty that the Russians proposed, the Treaty of San Stefano, that one gave them basically the territories I told you about, that Boris brought under Bulgarian control. But the Western powers didn't like that all of a sudden there is such huge pro-Russia country in the Balkans, so they made the Berlin Congress, which limited Bulgarian territorial gains a lot. And from there on out, Bulgaria waged several wars to try to bring these territories that were promised to them by the Russians, and also to unify its people, because it's not just concentrated in one part of the Balkans. That there is Bulgarians, everything else is like completely different people. So Bulgaria tried for several wars to unify its people, unify its territories, especially since we have a lot of history centuries ago of imperial hegemony over the Balkans. So that was the main goal. That is probably still the goal, but we're in a different situation right now. We have other problems.
Thanks for that summary. I really appreciate it. I love learning things like that about history. Let's transition here to what I'd been teasing earlier. So we're going to transition away from history and let's talk about where you feel the direction of Hearts of Iron 4 is going. And particularly, are we ready for Hearts of Iron 5? Is that the direction we just need to get off this platform, or are there still major improvements to be made to Hearts of Iron 4? What do you think?
What I feel might not be what is gonna happen, but I'm gonna give my best shot. Because I don't work for Paradox. For those of you who don't know, I'm independent, strong independent modder here. But from what I have seen, how Paradox is actually improving their relations with the community these last few DLCs. As one of the developers, I don't remember who he was, Daniel maybe? I'm not even sure if he works for Paradox anymore, but he was asked when Hearts of Iron 5, basically. He said, actually the question was a little bit longer. Will you continue doing DLCs for Hearts of Iron 4? Or will you start working on Hearts of Iron 5? I think it was somewhere between those lines. His answer was, we can work on both things. We don't have to just focus on one of the games. I was like, okay, maybe they are gonna expand their team, their resources or something, because this is still a lot of work. But in theory, they can still assign a few people to maintain Hearts of Iron 4 for like 5 more years, for example, I don't know. Hire, I would call them freelancers, mercenary teams to actually develop like country packs, like the Battle for the Bosphorus. Because we still are missing the Scandinavian countries. Like everyone expected with No Step Back to get a Finnish focus tree. We didn't. That was a big hit there. They could have, like a lot of people wanted Finland to have finally their own focus tree. So especially since it was in the region with the Soviets, with the Baltics. So there is one potential DLC. I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen, like Northern Lights or Northern Brothers, something like that. Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, these countries definitely are getting a DLC, but they don't necessarily need the main team to work on them, because as far as we saw with Battle for the Bosphorus, freelancer teams can do very good DLCs apparently. ISP, I believe, maybe even Bitter Steel, but I'm not sure about Bitter Steel. They really like Bulgaria for some reason. It's their favorite country from the trio.
I actually don't know if Bitter, I think he's played it. I think he's got some videos on Bulgaria. I don't know if he likes playing Bulgaria though. I'll have to ask him. Daniel is no longer with the Paradox developer team, and the lead designer turned over, so it's Ario now. And he seems like he's a really nice guy. I've talked to him on the Discord a couple times, and they actually just came out with a April Fool's video where you could see the developers. But no definitive. I agree with you. Like it's definitely going to be like Northern Lights, like you said, like Finland. All those countries that you name, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, they all have basic focus trees, but Finland was the one that was involved in World War II the most. So obviously it would have to be, the new DLC is most likely going to be Finland. So I agree with you for sure.
I mean, it's not nice to annoy the players by nope, it's not gonna be Finland this time. Nope, not this time as well. That's gonna annoy the community to hell.
Well, the problem that I see is that Germany is already so powerful. So if you give Finland a focus tree, I would assume that it's going to buff Germany. Germany gave a lot of troops to Finland, a lot of old tanks. They're like Panzer Is. They're captured tanks that they got from France actually went up to Finland. There was a division, like a mixed light division that went up there, as well as a lot of the other infantry divisions. But it could get out of control where Germany would become way too powerful if the Finnish focus tree melded well with Germany's, goals.
Well, since you mentioned Germany, have you noticed that the USSR AI has become very weak after their own DLC? Like, Germany right now doesn't have any debuffs, and that's not historical. They did have their own problems that they needed to solve. They couldn't solve everything, and they also had internal struggle between the generals, leaders, and the party itself. So if you rework Germany to be more historical, that's gonna even the score basically. That's the best way to balance things out. Like Germany needs a rework, no question about it. Is it gonna come with the Finnish DLC? Maybe. It's gonna be the wise decision. Since they have border with Denmark, which is part of the Northern Lights circle basically, that everyone expects, it's gonna be the best time to make a German rework.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. I guess the question that I want to ask you is this like what's happening here and what I talked about with Bitter the other day on the podcast was as there's all these add-ons, as you're alluding to, it's incredibly tough on the modders as well. Like it almost becomes like a rat's nest of code and other things. Like if I have all the DLCs enabled now, like I hit speed bumps in terms of speed, like early game. The lag is increasing as they keep on adding things on that don't quite jive, I guess, with the base code. When is this new DLC going to be the last one? Is it time for a complete rework? Like, I know you said that we could do it. They could do it in parallel. Well, yeah, money can solve any problem, but if they still want to make DLCs for Hearts of Iron 4, then there's no point in making Hearts of Iron 5. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Maybe I could get a little more out of you in terms of that concept.
I mean, Paradox are known for milking until the end, so they might just focus on Hearts of Iron 4 until the very last. That could happen. But they could also, as I said, they could assign a very small part of the team to just maintain it and still get money by hiring freelancers to make, for example, as we mentioned, the Northern Lights. There is a desire to have Middle Eastern DLC as well, like country pack for like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan would be very appreciated by some people as well. People also want attention in South America, which was not involved in the war that much, but people still want DLCs there because some people live there or they just want something fresh. Because every continent has their own charm to it. It's not the same place like Asia or Africa or Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe. Every place has something to offer. So they can keep a small team there and hire freelancers from time to time to get some cash from DLC if they need it. And in the meantime, focus the larger part of the team on developing new mechanics for Hearts of Iron 5, new ways to play the game. And what they do with Hearts of Iron 4 in the meantime, they could experiment, like give suggestions on, for example, the freelancers, how they could make focus trees work better with decisions, or how events to deliver more options and more stuff to be more relevant to the actual story, because each country is their own story. The job of the developer to make it interesting story for the player and for the storytelling of the entire war and setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I just think that if you go too far out of bounds, like Middle East wasn't really impactful. South America, as you said, was not too impactful. Takes away from the base like mechanics of the game. And now we have like a massive Soviet tree and a massive Italian tree.
Oh, yes.
I think has created a lot of the lag. What do you think about these mega trees, like focus trees? Are these too big? Like, because I know the developers definitely struggle with this because they've talked about it. They've actually told us that the Soviet tree was bigger than they had anticipated. What do you think about that? Like bigger things causing more game options, causing lag, hurting the gameplay of the game.
Go and play Road to 56 or Kaiserreich. Like, these mods are massive in scope. They have even bigger focus trees. They have much more focuses, much more decisions, game mechanics related to them. They still run pretty fine. I think if you are struggling so much, I don't want to offend anyone, but it might be time to get a new PC. Or if you are having trouble and you don't particularly like some DLCs, you can still buy them to try them out several times, but you can then disable them to don't slow the game down. Like, you have options there. I don't know, like, if they do them right, because I have heard people say that focus trees are not a great mechanic. It breaks the game. It's not something they should focus on. I agree to some extent. Victoria 2, for example, doesn't have focus trees. Europa Universalis doesn't have focus trees. Yet they work pretty fine because they have very solid core mechanics. I have played a little bit of Europa Universalis 4. They have some sort of, you can call it a mix between decisions and focuses. Like, they have their own requirements, and if you achieve them, then you get a small bonus from, for example, I think they call them missions, actually, from that mission. But Hearts of Iron 4 is built to rely on focus trees, because in the end of the day, you want to have a historical game or semi-historical. For example, Germany, you wanted to go for Anschluss, you want to go for the Sudetenland, eventually to attack Poland. It's an easy way to tell the AI, I want you to do specifically that, and that, without actually coding the AI to, like, prepare a special conference, to start inviting France, UK, and whoever is involved in the conference, then to start to make demands. That's extra work for the developers to make the AIs work as they want them to work. With the Fox tree, you just tell the AI, I want you to have this percentage of focus towards these specific focuses. The rest you can do them eventually, but I want you to focus on these things first. With this in a certain way.
Yeah, I absolutely, I think about that mechanic quite a bit, and that is what gives Hearts of Iron 4, I guess it makes it stand alone, because I don't see many other games. I can't think of any games that have the focus tree system, and new players to the game, like, I feel like I have to explain to them kind of what it is, but it's an easy concept to get, and like you said, it's a very good workaround for tailoring the AI's behavior, kind of telling the AI this is stepwise, like how you're gonna, behave. And I think that it's a genius system. But what I've noted, particularly with the last DLC, By Blood Alone, is that I think that it was the large Italian focus tree that caused the lag in the game. And I'm running an AMD Ryzen 7, and I've got, DDR4 RAM. I've got a GTX 3060. Game's laggier now than when I was playing on my older computer, which was like an Intel 5, really old school, like, graphics card and things like that. So that is my theory. I don't know. I'm not like a programmer, but I've just noticed this. So I think that eventually we're going to need a complete rework. But what I would like to see is,
we would need a new game with new engine, not a rework.
Yes,
this
a
is
new
what
game
I'm
with a new
hoping
engine.
for.
I misspoke. Yes, but
Yeah.
I think that you need that. I've talked to the developers a little bit, but not to be too, bossy about it. But basically, there's all these people bombarding them with, not all feedback is good feedback. And sometimes the people that are making the most noise are the ones that don't have good feedback.
That's the case in life generally as well. The loudest people are not necessarily the one with good advice.
So it is a big problem. It is very, like, hard to balance. I think that the game need to somehow simplify it again. I think that it's become overly complex, but it is what it is at this point. I think it's still an incredibly fascinating game, and with a lot of levels and a lot of depth. I'd like to see a multiplayer mode that is very spit and polished, where the rules are very finite, and the only way that they've been able to do that is by creating. But I would like it in the base game. Do you have any base game wish lists right now besides the Northern Lights DLC?
Before I answer that, and we can talk about on the competitive side of Hearts of Iron if you want later. Before that, I want to clarify actually, that the focus trees themselves don't slow down the game. It is the hundreds of mechanics behind each focus, possibly, or focus tree. like you don't see them. For example, for Bulgaria, because I'm most familiar with how its mechanics work, you have constantly every day, this is the biggest slowdown for the game, triggers and scripts that every day or weekly or monthly check specific things. Has Bulgaria done that focus? How much is the popularity of that faction? Have you assigned this politician? Do you have these territories? Every day or every week or every month, the game checks, and it checks 1000 things at a time daily. This is what actually slows down the game. No matter how strong PC you get, eventually just the code is just too heavy. They try to optimize things, but it's not just the size of the focus trees, the size of the background code, I would call it, behind each focus and branch and stuff. It was a cool system. Went from, the Balkan countries have these factions. They transitioned with Italy, Switzerland, and Ethiopia to balance of power, which surprised me how well it works. I'm actually gonna use it for my own mod, even gonna attempt to make it for the generic focus tree, to have, for example, right now I work on the communist branch. You're gonna have a choice between the council and the party leader, like a balance, like in the Soviet Union, balance between Stalin and his party members, for example. And I think that's going to create an interesting mechanic. About the competitive mode, it's very simple. Like they made their own mod, certain sectors of the world. You make 3 countries, 1 allies, 1 axis, and 1 neutral nations, or whatever it was called. You give special focus tree. You cut everything else out of the game so that it's light and easy to load. Like the more things you have, the more chances you have for something breaking and crashing the game, or 1,000 other things. The less stuff you have, the simpler it is to maintain. So yeah, they could take that idea if there is bread for it, like if people want it to have more competitive modes, they could totally invest in that. Just make it more interesting, like make map features, state modifiers, impossible terrain, special events that make the dynamic between the factions more interesting. They definitely have options. If they want to go for that, I think there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, and I think multiplayer in its current state, what I'd like is like a primary competitive mode. This is the gold standard for, or at least, the tournament standard for Hearts of Iron 4. We all agree that these are the multiplayer rules and that we're going to have competitive tournaments that would be broadcasted on YouTube and Twitch or wherever else. Everyone's used to it, like playing a game of soccer. There's not multiple rule sets. It's one cohesive thing, and everything is like simplified, and we all agree that we're all going to play competitive, historical, with taking out these countries, making borders, a lot more guardrails on the game. So that's my dream for the game, is having a format that is clean for competitive multiplayer.
I mean, yeah, if they cut the non-historical parts of the focuses and disable the mechanics that are not needed for the historical parts, and then they, for example, make a new mode for competitive, it's completely it's not very hard to do. It's completely possible. And if there is, as I said, bread for that, if people want it. But I'm not sure how they're gonna make money with with not selling DLCs and flashy new focus trees and mechanics. Oh, look at this. We made it work. We made so much effort into this to be so nice and interesting.
And see, that's the problem, is that even if what my vision is like, that's people want it, if Paradox can't monetize it, then it's just money down the drain. Then it actually is not good advice, and it's not good feedback. So I don't know. Yeah, the monetization of said mode, I think that they've customized out like your player avatar. Like there's a lot of customization there. I think what you do is you add badges into the player avatar are, badges that are hard to get, or you could maybe pay for badges, or if you play tournaments, you get a badge that no one else would have. You'd have to somehow have a marketplace within Hearts of Iron 4 and then get into that whole, rabbit hole. So they're not really set up for that now. So maybe in Hearts of Iron 5.
Well, since we're giving them ideas, I'm gonna start stealing ideas from StarCraft 2 because they're doing a really good job with their game. You know what they could do to make some money that they have tried, but they have not invested enough. Custom 3D models, they could make custom UI graphics. Like, for example, it goes, I don't have specific ideas, but for example, they can make it, let me zoom in on your stream. For example, they can make the buttons different palette of colors. They could make a new way I have seen mods make custom buttons. Like, for example, instead of these brown, ugly buttons, they could make them more ironish, more steel, more wooden, for example. They could make them more diverse. That could be like, they call them, I forgot. They have DLCs about 3D models for tanks and stuff like that. They could have similar things for the UI, for example, as I mentioned. They could have specific, that sounds a little bit silly, but they could have more interesting unit icons that packs for the divisions that they could sell. That to me sounds a little bit silly, but they could do that, for example.
So they do.
They could make more music packs. They could sell more music because not the biggest, but I do miss some Bulgarian music in that battle for the Bosphorus, or some Greek, something Romanian, for example. We have this for the Eastern Front countries that got their own playlist.
So they do sell like the 3D packs, and they do sell music packs. I think they have at least one, or maybe there's one that came with No Step Back, I forget. I think where it goes wrong is the icons are so small, even though like I have all the 3D models for new tanks and planes and stuff like that, I barely notice it because the planes are too small. And if you zoom in, the battle noises become deafening. So like it hasn't really added value. I think it's a good idea for the UI changes that you're talking about, but I think you change the pictures in the production line because you could see that much easier. Like you give picture packs basically.
That can also work. You can, like, if you have noticed, the German 3D models are extremely small. I think that's the case for the majors. For some reason, they're extremely small 3D models for the tanks. But for example, Bulgaria has massive 3D models for their tanks. I'm like, is this the mouse for Bulgaria? Why the German tanks are so small? Make them bigger. Like, if you make the models have more quality, you have to make them bigger so that they're visible. Otherwise, what's the point to buy these 3D packs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I would say that they could improve their monetization that way. And we're not talking about like $20 to buy these packs. Like even if the packs only cost like a couple bucks, if enough people buy them, it turns into a lot of money over time. And then you would hope that money would go for future game development. And I would like them to better monetize Hearts of Iron 4, and I know that might not be a popular idea, but if they make more money from the game and that translates into better game development, I'm all for it. If it's not like paywall that nerfs you in any way, but if it's something that's like an add-on, like we've been talking about, that is just a couple bucks, but it turns into like the game developers have an extra, $30,000 this year to make more DLCs or something. I would really love that.
Another thing could be map mode. Like I have seen different text, for example, for the countries, clean white or something with more contour or textures in the text, or for example, different lighting. For example, the water, they make it more dark, less reflective. The countries have more defined borders, or they make it more like World War One style movie. They can make it black and white or with sepia color palette. They have options if they want to do it. It's just a matter of, do they really want to invest money in that, or they want to focus on bigger things like Hearts of Iron 5.
I think that I'm going to have to wrap the podcast up here, but I think that we're both on the same page. There's probably a few more DLCs for Hearts of Iron 4, and then Hearts of Iron 5 needs to be on a new engine. Are we in agreement about that? Is that where we're going to conclude this game development, the Pillbox ESG game development corner?
Oh, definitely. Like I bought, for example, Crusader Kings 3, and I was blown away by how smooth everything moves. No lag, no nothing. Even 300 years into the game, everything still moves very smooth. It's very clean, no lags, no bugs, no nothing. I'm not sure how the engine is called, but if they use the one for Crusader Kings 3 or Hearts of Iron 5, the game doesn't have that many mechanics that the baggage on the processors and the engine. The like specific mechanics for countries that lag the engine and overload it. So if they can optimize that with a brand new engine, like the game is gonna be much better. They could add even more mechanics that are useful for every nation, not just the ones that have focus trees. Like, do you know that Together for Victory allows you to send Lend-Lease? Like, this is ridiculous. It should be in the base game. Oh,
Is
yeah.
that air volunteers too? I was
Yeah.
because like in the no DLC, like you can't send air volunteers. Yeah, that's weird. Like, yeah, Together for Victory should just be base game at this point. But okay,
I think it
so
also allows you the puppet system, which is essential if you want to have more control over your possessions. Like you cannot annex everything; you're gonna run out of manpower.
well, yeah, and that's what happened historically was they'd start puppeting things off and install, these governments that were under the direct control of whatever dictator you want to choose at that time. But obviously, yeah, these are things that need to be hardwired. But yeah, I'm gonna say they need to start developing Hearts of Iron 5 now and then plan out a few more DLCs. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. I'm actually out of time. But thank you for talking to me, Pillbox. I really appreciate like a modder's perspective on Hearts of Iron 4, and you did explain a few things about the base mechanics of the game that I was not aware of. So thank you very much, Pillbox.
No problem. Can I ask you a question real quick? For Hearts of Iron 5, what is the one thing you want to see? Like maybe more resources, maybe a new way the government works, maybe more diplomacy. What is the one thing you want to see for Hearts of Iron 5? For me, I want more resources. Like, give me more resources to work with. Make the more terrain of the map usable. Not only this has steel, this has rubber, this has aluminum. More stuff to trade.
I'm on the other side. I am more towards, instead of more depth to the game, playability. So I would like to see the Italian and Soviet focus trees be reduced in size. I'd like to see if they do add more resource mechanics, like I was playing NSIG the other day, like maybe just one or two, like grain or something like that. That would be fine.
Grain and coal, these things would be massive change.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not opposed to that as long as it doesn't overly, anything that doesn't create a lot more lag, reduces playability. I'm against those add-ons, but if they could rework things, they need to take things out of the game, I would say at this point, and then add more useful things and just streamline and optimize. That's where I'm at. 2023 Hearts of Iron 4.
I can agree with this. More playability, more easy access, more good flow, no lags, no crashes, no nothing.
All right, well, there we go. Well, check out Pillbox20's his YouTube page here. I'll put it in the link in the description box below, and it's up here on the screen for those of you that are watching on YouTube. And
for those who are watching from my YouTube channel, I'm gonna put in the description of the video the link to ESG's channel. He makes very nice and very interesting videos. He makes also guides. He makes world conquest videos. And as you can see right now, he makes podcasts. So go check out his YouTube channel as well.
All right. Thanks, Pillbox. And yeah, we'll meet up for multiplayer sometime if I can carve out some time to do that.
We can organize it.
All right, man. Have a good day.